welcome you to Oxford, and indeed we see the #1 team in the country, undefeated South Carolina, take on Ole Miss. And if you're thinking upset, the last time an Ole Miss team knocked off the #1 team in the country was 1977. We'll see what happens here today. These are two of the best teams in the SEC. You know all about South Carolina, the only undefeated team in the country. There is Ole Miss, and that fight for the top four, whatever Coach Yo says about being in the top four, it does look good on the resume to be up there, but they are in a battle with Alabama, and a win against South Carolina would be huge, of course, today. Great to have you with us, Eric Freed, Christy Thomas-Scuddy here with you courtside in Oxford. And this is quite the week for Ole Miss. Thursday at LSU, hung in there against the Tigers, #5 in the country, and now they get the #1 team in the country here today.
Iron sharpens iron, Eric, and if you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best. A huge opportunity before the Rebels here this afternoon.
And that means there's a lot on Angel Baker's shoulders, but that's been the course of the season. Throughout the course of the season, that's been the story.
Well, the 2,000-point career score has been huge this season for the Rebels. A true three-level scorer. She is so shifty and crafty with a ball in her hand. You've got to stay solid with shoulders and feet between this young lady and the rim, or she will create points. Her ability to create that space will be tested against the length of South Carolina today.
All right, so defensively, if you try to take away one thing for South Carolina, they could beat you in many other ways.
Well, the two veteran guards for South Carolina have picked it up in recent games, and it starts with Zia Cook. Career field goal percentage high. She's taken what the defense gives her. And Bree Bill, known as a defensive player the majority of her career, is hitting her stride offensively. Not just leading the team this year from three, but a career high, 42%. She has been on fire in recent games. She has been patient, she has been diligent, and she has answered the call of her head coach to be more offensive-minded.
Beal and Cook so efficient in their last two games. Most recently, a victory over Florida on Thursday at 7:56. They scored 29 points as a team in the first quarter, shot 65% in the first, never trailed. And a big part of that success comes from the backcourt with Beal and Cook leading the way. Yolette McPhee-McEwen in her fifth year, a 20-win season for Ole Miss. Second straight 20-win season for this program. First time an Ole Miss team had done that since 1994 and 1995. And Dawn Staley just keeps picking up wins. 32 wins in a row, dating back to their run to the national championship last spring.
I mean, Eric, that's impressive, but how about that jacket?
Christy always talking about the fashion. We're all about the X's and O's here, Christy Thomas-Scuddy, as we get ready to go. I'm interested to see what you think is going to be the most important thing for Ole Miss here today as they jump center. Madison Scott against Victoria Saxon, and we have seen this before with South Carolina. We saw that against LSU, scoring off the tip, and seconds in, it's 2-0 Carolina.
I'm actually shocked that Ole Miss was not prepared for that, because the one thing you want to do is start strong against the Gamecocks.
Here is Angel Baker, defended by Zia Cook. Works with the Scott screen. Marquisha Davis, bring it back out. Ole Miss starting five includes Rita Ibakwe getting her second start of the season and her first in SEC competition. Marquisha Davis averaging 14 points a game in the last 7, all as a starter. Baker went for 21 against LSU. A turnover on the shot clock violation on the first possession for Ole Miss. South Carolina, their familiar starting five. Zia Cook so efficient, 22 points in 20 minutes on Thursday. Aaliyah Boston played just 15 minutes in the win Thursday against Florida.
And Eric, we're seeing an effort to try to slow South Carolina down. Ole Miss coming out in a zone to start this game.
So what do you do against the zone? You try it from the outside, but that's off the mark, and a rebound here for Baker, who wants to push off the miss. One and done, and Kiara Fletcher has it for South Carolina. Fletcher on the attack, a little too strong, and Ibakwe kept it alive. And here comes Davis, one-on-one against Boston. Beautiful move and finish by Marquisha Davis.
And you see the game plan already for Ole Miss. They want to get out in transition, not have to go against the half-court defense of South Carolina, and then slow South Carolina down.
But the key to trying to stop South Carolina from Ole Miss's point of view is to pack it in. We've seen it before with the zone on defense.
And adds another bit of intrigue. You've got to find your matchup when that shot goes up because we know how good South Carolina is on the glass.
Case in point, Boston got the offensive rebound but unable to follow it up, but then a foul is called on Ole Miss.
Well, Eric, the easiest way to score against the top defensive team in the country is to not let it get set up. Great job of Davis going right at, in my opinion, the number one player in the country in Aaliyah Boston in scoring.
The team, number one, as Christy mentioned, scoring defense and field goal percentage defense. Ibakwe was concerned with boxing out Boston, but no one went for the basketball. Jump ball will give possession to Ole Miss.
Well, Eric, you know how in shoot-arounds some teams literally just walk through things? Ole Miss today started theirs with a rebounding drill. If you don't know what the priority is for the Rebels, there you have it.
Maya Taylor works the point, guarded by Fletcher. Scott.
And Eric, already one thing you're seeing is Ole Miss's inability with the screens to really generate offense because of the switching of South Carolina.
Madison Scott second on the team in scoring at 12 points a game, leading the team in rebounding, third in the conference at 8.5. Having another strong year for Ole Miss, 9-4 in the SEC. South Carolina again trying from the outside. This time it goes down after missing their first two. Knocked down by Cook.
Something to watch when Ole Miss has the ball is can they create advantages with the screens? You're seeing South Carolina switch those screens, on balls, down screens, and that's slowed Ole Miss's just fluid on the offensive end.
Davis takes it at Saxton, can't get the reverse, and Boston pulls it down. Beal back to Fletcher. As a team, South Carolina 31% from outside the three-point line. Not great, but good enough. Seventh in the conference. They make, on average, 4.5 a game. They get so much from the inside, and Madison Scott thought she had all ball, but a foul is called.
Well, South Carolina running some screening action for the extra pass, and Madison Scott bumps down, and official got it. I thought, my first look, I thought it was all ball, but she definitely got part of the arm there.
And so now Dawn Staley is up and getting the officials' attention because she was clearly attempting a three, and they want to make sure it's a three-point shot. And they're going to go to the monitor here, so that means we're going to get immediate timeout. So what they're going to look at here is to see if the feet were behind the line. They clearly were, so when we come back, it's going to be 3 free throws for South Carolina. Opening minutes here at the Pavilion in Oxford. South Carolina has won the last 16 in the series. Most recently, SEC tournament semifinals, 10-point win. So that's the close-up of the contact. And you think there's some hand there. From that angle, it looks like all ball. You can see Madison Scott, but you saw from the opposite angle, you thought there was some risk. That's not what they're looking at, however. They're just looking to see where Zia Cook's feet were, and they were clearly behind the three-point line. The officials looked at the monitor. They have ruled it was a three-point field goal attempt, so 3 free throws coming up. So we talked about the history between these two teams. They met 3 times last year, as I mentioned, in the SEC tournament semifinals last year. That was the first trip to the semifinals for an Ole Miss team since 1993. All this long-time history keeps getting erased here in these last couple of years in this Ole Miss program.
Well, it's a new era under Coach Joe, and she said today, our goal is not to make the NCAA tournament. This team wants to win a game in the NCAA tournament this season.
Trying to make back-to-back trips to the NCAAs. Last season went 23-9 overall, 10-6 in the SEC, which was tied for 4th and their best finish since 1994, and they ended up making their first trip to the tournament since 2007. Their last game was LSU on Thursday. They lost by 9, 69-60. They trailed for 38 minutes in that game, but they were in it till the final minute. Take a look at what they did last year, and as we jump ahead to this year, Angel Reese had to go for 36 and 20 in that game. Angel Baker at 21 against LSU the other night, but this is a team that wants to be in that conversation with those top teams, Tennessee, with LSU now, and with South Carolina in the SEC.
I mean, Coach Owen shoot-around this morning said to her team, there's only 3 teams I have not beaten as the leader of this program, and that is Tennessee, LSU, and South Carolina.
So 3 free throws here for Zia Cook. Excellent free throw shooter, 5th in the conference at 78%. And she has been outstanding from the field the last 3 games. 20 of 34 from the field in the last 3. Heading into today, that's good for 59%.
Eric, you started the broadcast by saying teams have been packing it in on the bigs because we know how dominant South Carolina's been in terms of paint points, and hats off to the veteran guards for South Carolina because they've responded in knocking down those open looks.
As a result, the score right now is Zia Cook 8, Ole Miss 4. Davis hangs in the air, a little too strong, 1 and done, and here comes Beal. Fletcher will slow things down, survey this Ole Miss defense.
And you see the sets that South Carolina is running against this matchup zone.
Fletcher tries a 3 well off the mark. Just 2 of 14 from outside the arc this year, so they'll give her that shot all afternoon long. Fletcher back on Baker. Baker, nifty little turnaround, no. Fletcher has it knocked out of her hands by Baker. It'll be South Carolina basketball.
And Eric, something to watch in this game for Ole Miss is just, are they sharing the ball? Because in the losses this season, Ole Miss has struggled from the assist perspective. A lot of one-on-one ball instead of sharing and setting one another up for high percentage looks.
Cook defended by Taylor. They look for Boston in the post. Back inside to Saxton. Well run by South Carolina to get Victoria Saxton her first 2.
Just great ball movement by South Carolina. What you want to do against any kind of zone is reverse the ball, get the one-on-one down low, and that's exactly what the Gamecocks did.
We talked about it in the LSU game the other night. When Ole Miss is good on offense, they're moving, they're cutting, playing off each other. Sometimes they just get stuck a little bit. Now, granted, LSU is one of the elite defensive teams in the country, and South Carolina, as you pointed out, Christy, is number 1 in scoring defense and field goal percentage defense, and Boston gets called for the foul.
Well, I thought Boston missed Saxton on that cut, but she reverses it, and that forces a rotation, which is why Saxton is left open to seal a guard. Great pass by Bill, great finish by Saxton.
Bunch of substitutions here for Ole Miss. Alana Eaton is into the game. Ayanna Thompson, freshman, has come into the game. Snowda Collins is in as well. And it'll be Rita Ibakwe going to the free throw line. She was very good against LSU, held her own against that real tough rebounding team. 4 points, 9 rebounds, had 5 blocks in that game. So she got the start here today for the first time in SEC play.
Well, I texted you after the game, and I said, Rita looks good. And just in time when you're going to go up against some of the best posts in the country in the South Carolina team.
Camila Cardoso will come into the game for Aaliyah Boston. This is really where South Carolina separates themselves from the other teams in the country, not just the conference, because there is not a drop-off as Dawn Staley goes to her bench.
There's not a drop-off, and yet your starters get to rest at the same time.
Fletcher with a strong drive for 2. Eaton, good three-point shooter. Not this time. Cardoso tips it to Cook. And Zia Cook to Kiara Fletcher, a little out of her reach. She ends up 4 rows deep. First turnover for either side.
Well, I mentioned very early in this game how Ole Miss was struggling to get good looks. In the last 5 possessions, they've gotten good looks. The key right now is, can they knock down these good looks? Because Baker, Davis, they all have to be able to score here for Ole Miss if they're going to hang in this game.
Baker has to throw it up quickly. Can't get that to drop. Ole Miss 2 for 10 so far here in the first quarter. Oh, good job coming back, Baker, defensively to get the block on Cook.
Eric, we've talked a lot about how good South Carolina's defense is. Make no bars about it. So is Ole Miss defensively.
Angel Baker gets her first points, averaging 15 points a game, good for 11th in the conference. 21, as we mentioned before, against LSU on Thursday. 4-point game. Entry pass, Cardoso, Saxton, too strong, and here's Baker. Baker, hesitation, that's her spot, but not this time. Ibakwe with the offensive rebound. And a traveling violation. Turnover for Ole Miss.
Yeah, the Rebel fans don't like that, but that was a good call.
Ibakwe will check out of the game. Tyus Singleton, who had been starting at that spot, will come into the game. Destiny Salary checks in for Baker.
And Ole Miss gets point production from their bench as well. 19 points a game for them, so it's not a big drop-off when Coach O goes to her bench.
Raven Johnson into the game for South Carolina. Redshirt freshman has been outstanding over the last few weeks. Finds Cardoso. Didn't drop. Saxton had the rebound for the moment, but it's taken away by Ole Miss.
And credit Ole Miss's defense. They are allowing the outside shot to the bigs of South Carolina, and they're taking it. I would rather those bigs make the extra pass and get down low.
So 5 reserves on the floor right now for Ole Miss here in the first quarter. Saxton, Cook, and Beal, original starting 5 still out there for South Carolina. Collins, good little move to get free. Gets it to drop. Cook, too strong. Rebound for Thompson.
And Eric, you said 5 reserves. That's just today, because each one of these ladies that I'm looking at have started at some point this season for the Rebels.
And a turnover. Traveling violation number 2. Ashlyn Watkins, freshman who went for a double-double last time against Florida. 12 points, 10 boards in 16 minutes will come in. Zia Cook will check out. We've seen flashes from Watkins, but it does seem in the last several weeks we've seen some pretty good consistency and solid growth from the freshman.
Well, I asked Dawn Staley this morning, who's the next person on the bench that you're looking to get more from? And she said Ashlyn Watkins. She said her practices have been amazing. It's just been a challenge to find time for her on the court because of how well Cardoso and the other bigs have been playing.
Cardoso on the offensive glass for 2.
Case in point to Dawn Staley having issues of finding minutes for all her bigs.
Dropped inside. A good job by Ole Miss. Tyus Singleton with the hoop. Bree Hall also into the game for South Carolina. She's got it. Watkins. Back outside Beal. Wide open 3. No good. And a foul is going to be called on Ole Miss. Singleton gets called for the personal.
You know what, though? I think if you're Coach O, you take that, because at least you know your players have listened. That they're putting a body on the bigs of South Carolina when that shot goes up.
He'll stay with South Carolina. Well, Christy, you mentioned it. South Carolina running into a good Ole Miss defensive team. 2nd in the SEC in scoring defense, 3rd in the SEC in opponents' field goal percentage defense, and on cue, a steal by Salary. Too strong, and Cardoso's got the rebound. Hall back the other way, 1-on-2. South Carolina ice cold shooting so far, 5 of 18 here in the first quarter. Eaton wide open 3. It was a long 2, foot on the line, and both teams trying to find the bottom of the basket here in the last minute of the first.
Well, I think for South Carolina, they've got to make an adjustment here at the quarter break of not taking the shots Ole Miss wants them to take. Keep working the ball, get that ball reversal, and look to get some post touches in the paint.
Watkins takes it into the paint, has it blocked by Singleton. Mistake, turnover. Johnson finishes with the left. Final seconds of the quarter. Maybe one final heave. Good if it goes. And that's going to do it for quarter number one. So Ole Miss hanging in there against South Carolina. Turnover costly at the end of the quarter. 3 in the quarter and all for Ole Miss. It's a 4-point game after one. Teams are combined 11 of 36 from the field after one quarter. So this is when I cue you up and say, wow, how about those defenses, Christy Thomascutty?
Defense.
I didn't know we were going to get the defense chant. That's a bonus.
Well, and this is what I expected, though. Right now, what I'm more eager to see is the adjustments now that both coaches make, because they've seen. Coach O has seen the switching on some of the on-ball screens. Dawn Staley now has seen how the 1-3-1 matches up against her half-court sets. We saw that one possession where ball reversals on the skip, Saxton got the seal. That's what I'd like to see more of from South Carolina. And for Ole Miss, they're getting the looks now. The key is, can they finish? They've already missed 2 point-blank layups.
It has been hard for teams to hang around with South Carolina, and we'll see if Ole Miss is able to do it for 40 minutes, because that's how South Carolina is built. They are a 40-minute team. You think about how they finished off that LSU game. They got off to that great start, up 18-2, but LSU made a run in the first half. They were within 3, but then South Carolina just pulled it out at the end, stretched things out as it went along. They shot 77% in the fourth quarter. LSU shot 31%, so Dawn Staley's team will make you play for all 40 minutes.
Absolutely, and it's not just play. You have to be locked in. And that's one thing Coach O said today. We just can't have that breaking moment. That's what South Carolina does to you.
Cook sees Cardoso, which is not hard to do. It's 6'7" with those hands way up in the air, and she puts it in. She's got 4. Taylor back into the game. Ibakwe as well. Scott, it's like the original starting 5 all out there right now for Ole Miss. And the closest games this year, Christy, for South Carolina, 4 points at UConn, win. 5 points at Stanford, overtime, win. Closest SEC game, 7 points at Mississippi State. Every other result has been double figures in favor of South Carolina.
It's how good, how balanced, how deep this South Carolina team is.
Ole Miss with Davis, knowing that Cardoso, shot blocker, was right there, was patient. Got the space she needed. She's got 4.
I really think Davis has to be the X factor for Ole Miss if they're going to get this W here today.
Cook knocks it down from 17. Zia Cook scored the first 8 for South Carolina in this game. She's already in the double figures now at 10.
I mean, here's the high on-ball screen for Baker, and you just see the switch. Cardozo's so comfortable there because of her length of keeping a guard in front of her.
Switches out, gets the block. Raven Johnson picks up the loose ball. Johnson flips it up to who else but Cardoso, but wave it off. Offensive foul, Johnson. First personal on Raven Johnson.
And Eric, I can't say enough. That was just huge by Madison Scott. All momentum starting to go South Carolina's way. Madison Scott steps up and takes that charge.
Davis trying to keep that pivot foot locked down on the court. Taylor rejected. The freshman Watkins there with the swat.
I was going to say, when Davis drove, credit Cardozo's length for making her stop. Ashlyn Watkins there just doesn't give up on the play.
Christie, already 3 blocks for South Carolina. They lead the nation 9.4 a game. Last year they led the nation at 7.4 a game. So well beyond what they did last year. Scott with 2 on the shot clock.
Madison Scott.
Scott shot well against LSU, just didn't shoot a lot, was 5 of 6 from the field, picking up 13 points.
I feel like that's almost every game for Madison Scott. She just takes what the defense gives her, and I think it's a little bit probably too unselfish.
How many shots do you think Madison Scott should take a game or needs to take a game? She has to be up in double figures, you would think, right?
Absolutely. I'm thinking like anywhere from like 12 to 14.
Even higher, yeah, be well beyond 10. She's got the ability. We have seen flashes. I just still think, she hasn't hit her ceiling, and that's something that her head coach has talked about a few times. And this is something that we've seen more of her this year, but there's still more that she can offer.
I mean, think about it. I'm going to say at least half her shots right now in the season are coming on offensive rebounds. She's quick. She's agile. That jumper has improved so much this past season.
Baker did a great job against Cook. Leans in, count it, and the foul.
Count the basket. Foul is charged, number 1, Cook.
Angel Baker just raising her level of play on the biggest stage. Just brings the ball through and draws that contact. Look at the touch. Knows she has to be explosive to get by Cook, then gathers herself to take it up strong.
Back the line for the and one.
In the last home game for Ole Miss against Kentucky, Angel joined the 2,000-point club. Scored a lot at Wright State, where she had great success in the Horizon First Team All-Conference in the Horizon with Wright State twice. Nota Collins back into the game. Her former coach at Wright State, Katrina Merriweather, came down to see the record-setting mark to go over the 2,000 to join that exclusive club. Not a record, but it's pretty cool.
Eric, I don't care where you scored some points. 2,000 is a lot.
Tipped out of bounds. Last touch by Ole Miss. This is one thing, too, with Madison Scott. She'll set the intensity level, too, for this team. She is always locked in. You talk about being locked in for 40 minutes against South Carolina. She'll be locked in.
She knows how important this game is.
Boston back into the game. Leans in, and a foul is called on Ibakwe. That's 2 on Ibakwe.
And make note of that, because Ibakwe's length has been so good. I asked Coach O today, I was like, what is it about Ibakwe in the last couple of games? She goes, she likes playing against other big players. Doesn't like the small bigs. She wants to go up against the big bigs.
Ibakwe is going to have to go to the bench now with 6:53 to go in the second quarter. As Singleton's back in the game, and Boston to the free throw line for 2. So Aaliyah Boston did not score in the first quarter. She hasn't scored yet. She had just 4 points and 6 rebounds, but only played 15 minutes against Florida. Of course, the Florida game was the first game after that intense LSU game in front of 18,000 fans at Colonial Life Arena, 1.5 million watching on ESPN. Baker knows she's got to get rid of it quickly against a shot-blocking team like South Carolina. Ole Miss has tied it at 21. Boston, the entry, the finish, her first field goal.
We'll credit Boston for doing the work before she even got the ball. Got into the defender with that little seal. Allowed plenty of space for that pass and score.
Scott defended by Boston. Back out to Davis. Won't drop, and Cardozo's got the rebound. Cook all the way, and a trip to the free throw line coming for Zaya Cook.
Aaliyah Boston realized that she had one-on-one against Singleton, so got her body into her and just allowed her teammate to lead her to the rim.
That's the 3rd assist for Zaya Cook to go along with her 10 points. As a team, 6 assists on 9 field goals so far for South Carolina.
Very unselfish play. I mean, when I asked Dawn Staley today, because she had mentioned to Carolyn Peck that she wanted a higher field goal percentage, a better three-point shooting percentage. And I said, Dawn, you're shooting 47%.
She wants it all. She wants it all. 9th in Division I in field goal percentage, and 1st in the SEC in assists per game.
But she clarified.
She wants more.
Yes, but she clarified. She said, I feel like at times we just need to start quicker. and that means paint touches. That means our posts get those touches down low. And so there's a method to the madness for sure. Go for those higher percentage looks so they can score quicker to start each half.
Thompson getting into the hands of Salary. Here's one thing that's been very consistent with this Ole Miss team the last couple of weeks. Since that Auburn loss where Coach Yo talked about it, they played too many minutes with their starters. They were gassed. But she has been very much committed to these substitution patterns. Boston rejects Salary. The shot clock was down to 2, and now Cook off the block. Good recovery by Ole Miss to get set defensively, but there's no defending that unless it rolls off the rim. You'll take it. Counts as a stop. Thompson. Won't drop. Salary got knocked down. No call, and they play on with Cook. Cook, little hesitation. Won't drop. Singleton fighting on the glass against 2 South Carolina players, and those 2 players happen to be Bree Beal and Aaliyah Boston. That's not a fair fight. Media timeout with 4:43 to go. Oh, getting a little feisty in this building. 4-point game. They got a lot to cover at halftime because a busy Sunday, as always, in the SEC. Charlie Cream updating bracketology. Of course, South Carolina, the overall #1. That hasn't changed. LSU with a victory over Florida. The 90-79 was the final. They're now 13-1 in the SEC. And Tennessee had a win over Auburn today. So those are your top 3 teams, according to Charlie, when it comes to seeding from the SEC.
Well, you know I had to talk to Charlie because it's Sunday.
You don't need an excuse to talk to Charlie.
But
7 days a week.
I asked him, I said, what if Ole Miss beats South Carolina? And he said, right now he had Ole Miss as the 4th, 8th seed. So something big would have to happen for them to jump a seed line. And he said, such as an upset of the #1 team in the country. He thought if Ole Miss could win today, they could jump to the 7th seed.
I'll tell you what, I don't want to look past this game because we got a close one, but Thursday's going to be very interesting for seeding, isn't it? Because Arkansas lost today to Georgia. They're now 6-8 overall. Charlie had them in the last 4 in category. Well, they're at Mississippi State on Thursday, A&M on Sunday, with their backs now against the wall, it would seem. And next up for South Carolina is Tennessee on the road on Thursday. That'll be interesting. Here's Cardoso out of the timeout. Can't get the baby hook to fall. Rebound by Ole Miss.
Credit the bigs of Ole Miss so far. They are holding their ground defensively. You've seen when South Carolina's been able to score, they've been led. They've done the seals. When they haven't, Ole Miss has been fairly strong down low.
Eaton. Back out top to Taylor. Scott tries to take Saxton off the dribble, and she'll head to the free throw line. Saxton gets called for the personal.
Victoria Saxton. That is her first personal foul.
First on Saxton.
Now the Gamecocks. Madison Scott will go to the line for the Rebels.
It was right in front of Dawn Staley, that call. And I think that's a look of someone who politely disagrees. Here's Madison Scott. Scott 67% from the free throw line. Now, one thing's for sure, Ole Miss, if you're going to knock off the #1 team in the country, you have to take advantage when you're at the free throw line. Bree Beal for Saxton. That pass took a while to get there. Taylor knocked it out of bounds. 12 to shoot. Letitia Amihir will come into the game for South Carolina as Johnson will check out. Cook, Eaton on the switch. 2 on the shot clock. Amihir just into the game, and it's going to be a shot clock violation. 5th turnover for South Carolina.
Where the bench was counting down, but this is how loud it is in the pavilion right now. I don't think the Gamecock players could hear the bench.
They are expecting an SEC record crowd here today. The record's 5,400 set in 1988. They are expecting over that number here today with the #1 team in the country in Oxford. Three-pointer, well off the mark. Ole Miss does not rely on the three-point shot. They make on average 5 a game. They shoot 29%. That's 12th in the country, and the conference rather. You should take a look around SJP Pavilion. Very good crowd here on a Sunday afternoon to see Ole Miss take on #1 South Carolina. Me here over the top. Not even Cardoso could catch that one, and here's Taylor. Taylor.
That was a smart move by Taylor.
Well, you just know you've got Cardoso and Saxton now and me here in the game. You got shot blockers everywhere in the court right now. Three-point shot continues to let Ole Miss down. They are now 0 for 4 beyond the arc. They took a lot of threes in the first half against LSU the other night, too.
Eric, we're at that point. Everybody's so well scouted that I think for both these teams right now, it's a matter of taking the best shot for your team, not what the defense is just giving to you, because that's what I've seen from both teams. They've settled for some looks that aren't necessarily the highest percentage for their team.
Oh, Collins, good three-point shooter. She'll bank it in. And Ole Miss gets the three to drop. They're within 1.
Well, you know, the bank three is always high percentage.
They had to mix things up. The other threes weren't going. Cook on the cut. Beautiful finish on the feed by Saxton. Zaya Cook once again putting up big numbers. 14 of the 27 points for South Carolina. Final 2 minutes of the first half. Scott. Back to Taylor. Shot clock at 5. Taylor tries to find Singleton inside. Muscles it in for 2 as the shot clock expired. Cook made the adjustment, couldn't get it, but Cardoso cleans it up.
Well, that started with the dribble penetration of Zaya Cook, which forced all those rotations. That's why Cardoso was untouched for that offensive rebound putback.
7 of the 23 rebounds for South Carolina, offensive rebounds. Final minute, second quarter. Singleton's grabbing at her side here a little bit. Timeout's being called here by Ole Miss. Tyus Singleton, I think, may have got caught up setting a screen, maybe got an elbow right on the hip. Let's take you back to the last hoop by Singleton with the shot clock winding down.
Well, just some screen on the ball and great roll by Singleton. Very patient because she knew the defender was coming over, and even better touch off the glass. Eric, I'll also tell you, I thought for both sides, we had a lot of players who were breathing hard because just the action's been up-tempo, but just how hard both teams are working right now on both ends of the floor.
One thing that timeout does for South Carolina, they can get Aaliyah Boston back into the game. She just went to the scores table to check in, so Boston is on. Ole Miss basketball, 7 on the shot clock. We'll get you to the studio. Peter and Steffi in just a moment. Singleton and Beal, yeah, that's where Singleton got dinged up a bit. And so she's going to come out of the game. But good point, Christy. Great observation. Just watching some players sucking wind a little bit. Davis, another jump shooter fouled by South Carolina as Raven Johnson gets called for the foul.
Raven Johnson, that is her second personal foul. Team down number 4.
So Davis will head to the free throw line. All right, this is the second to last Sunday of the regular season in the SEC. Next Sunday, 4 games will be on the SEC network. So much to be decided. The day will wrap up with Mississippi State in Baton Rouge to take on LSU. I'll be at 6 Eastern, 5 Central, SEC Network, and on the ESPN app. So the foul on Johnson, her second personal. Quisha Davis comes through at the free throw line, and it's a 1-point game.
We're seeing the 1-2-2 by Ole Miss, looking to be containment, try to take some time off the clock for South Carolina.
Three-pointer from Cook is going to be short. Rebound pulled down by Davis. Ole Miss, no need to run here. Shot clock is off, and the Rebels will hold for one, and they can take a lead into the locker room at halftime. Beal will make Baker work for it. Scott tries to get Baker some room. Beal against Baker, the turnaround, no. Rebound, Raven Johnson with the heave. And it'll be a South Carolina lead by just one at halftime, Christy.
Great defense by both squads. I'm eager to see the second half adjustments by both these head coaches.
Two teams have really dug in on defense, and the number one team in the country has their hands full on the road in Oxford. South Carolina by one at halftime. Peter and Steffi, all yours. Getting ready for the start of the third quarter here at Oxford, Mississippi. We've got a game. Ole Miss hanging tough for the number one team in the country, South Carolina. 1-point lead for the Gamecocks at halftime. Erica Christie back with you here courtside. Give a lot of credit to Ole Miss. This is a very good defensive team. They held South Carolina to 34% shooting in that first half.
And they've stuck to the game plan. They have been resoundingly disruptive on defense. And my key here is South Carolina's got to work to get the shot they want and not settle. And the person who worked to get those shots in the first half was Zia Cook. So good. Off the tip, she was locked and loaded and ready to go. Pull-up jumper, getting to the rim. The only three that the Gamecocks have in the first half was courtesy of Zia Cook. I think for the Gamecocks, they need to get some more points in transition. Try to get the tempo up and in the half court. Look for some of that high-low, but get paint touches.
You see the numbers. South Carolina was 1 for 6 from outside the three-point line in that first half. Ole Miss was 1 for 5. Ole Miss came back to tie it at 21, and they had a chance to take the lead at the end of the first half, but unable to convert. We see a +6 in rebounding margin for South Carolina. Interestingly enough, Aaliyah Boston played 9 minutes in the first half. 5 South Carolina players logged more minutes than Boston in the first half. She's out there to start the third quarter. Davis can't get it. Madison Scott on the offensive glass, and Beal grabs it for South Carolina.
And Eric, one thing Don Staley said to me is we need to start stronger at the beginning of each half. I'm eager to see how the Gamecocks respond here this afternoon.
I think we could have predicted that they would have looked to Aaliyah Boston on the first trip up the floor, because Boston in the first half, as I mentioned, just 9 minutes, was 1 for 3 from the field at 3 points. She'll go to the free throw line to shoot 2 here. Ibakwe picks up her third personal. Coach Yo hitting the coffee at halftime. She doesn't strike me as someone who needs a little jolt, but you know what? Maybe that's how she keeps it at a level of 11 when the scale is 1 for 10. We know your secret now, Yo.
Maybe it's chamomile tea, just to make sure she's...
Keep that voice?
Yeah, that
Does
too.
she use her voice during the game? I haven't noticed. Good job by Baker to hold on to it. South Carolina certainly has made Angel Baker work really hard so far through the first 20 minutes. Taylor will try it from outside and get it. Ryan Taylor's first points.
If I'm South Carolina, especially with Ibakwe already having that third foul, I would look to go high-low, look to get the ball inside and attack the big for Ole Miss.
Boston Gets called for the travel. One thing Ole Miss did very well in the first half, Christy, is take care of the basketball. Just 3 turnovers in the first half. South Carolina now with 7.
Well, that's what Coach O said. She goes, we've got to take care of the ball, we've got to score, and we've got to make things hard for South Carolina. And so far, that's what I mean. This team has executed the game plan.
Bree Beal gets called for the foul. So it'll be a trip to the free throw line for Davis to try and put Ole Miss in front. So Marquisha Davis has been in the starting lineup, 14 points a game over the last 7 games. 19 total starts in the season. Had 11 points, 5 rebounds against LSU. Took a lot of shots in that game, was 5 of 16.
You know, sometimes coaches switch up starting lineups. You're just not sure how over the big picture to work. Well, great move by Coach O, because Marquisha Davis has been just balling out these last 7 starts.
Ole Miss has tied it again. It's 31 all. Boston for 2. 7 points now for Aaliyah Boston. Davis shut off by Saxton. She'll reset. As Christy mentioned, Ibakwe staying on the floor with the 3 personal fouls for Ole Miss. Shot clock down to 5. Scott will have to create something on the turnaround and knocked out of bounds, last touch by Ole Miss. South Carolina basketball will be a shot clock violation before the out of bounds.
I gotta be honest with you, when Davis had Saxton on her, I'm surprised they went to set the on-ball screen. I would have just let her go to work one-on-one there.
Cook, 14 first half points, scored the first 8 of the game for South Carolina. That pass forced in, but then Fletcher got her hands on there. Jump ball, possession arrow will keep it with South Carolina.
The pass wasn't effective because it wasn't clean. South Carolina's on to something now. You can tell that diagonal pass from the wing low or even from the short corner to the high post is there now against this 1-3-1.
Boston on the turnaround. Can't get it. Saxton kept it alive, but only for the second. Ole Miss numbers the other way. Davis all the way. Tipped out of bounds by South Carolina. Break there for Ole Miss after coming up empty on the break.
Great effort, but that's what you have to do. You have to convert those layups, those free throws if you're trying to upset the #1 team in the country.
So you see Ibakwe checks out. Davis out as well. Singleton is in the game. She seems to be fine after taking that hit late in the first half. Snowda Collins in the game. Fletcher extending the defense out on Taylor. Taylor, round and round she goes. Saxton is tied up. Possession arrow will give it back to Ole Miss, and this big crowd getting a little bit louder in Oxford.
Eric, we talked during the break, just defensively how good these 2 teams have been. I got to give Maya Taylor, who's about to turn it over as I'm about to compliment her, credit, though. She had been doing such a good job of getting her team into the offense and even scoring here in the second half. first with the pull-up jumper just by that little hesitation dribble, and then keeps her dribble alive. Little scoop shot at the rim for 2 more for Ole Miss. Dawn Staley being pseudo point guard right now for her team with the ball right in front of her bench.
Cook. Back out for Boston. Cook. Maya Taylor. They play on. Good job by Baker, but a foul's going to be called on Singleton. Trying to box out Saxton. Second foul on Singleton. Beal trapped in the corner, and she stepped out of bounds.
Out of bounds, Ole Miss ball.
Great time to trap by Ole Miss. Caught the ball that deep. Forced the turnover.
Nine turnovers now for South Carolina. And Madison Scott is going to get called for the foul.
That's the second personal foul on Scott.
Camila Cardoso into the game. Raven Johnson comes in. Fletcher and Saxton check out. Lana Eaton coming on for Taylor for Ole Miss.
Maya Taylor.
We have seen throughout the season that Dawn Staley has used her bench. Her bench is averaging almost 40 points a game. Ole Miss staying committed to getting to the bench here in the third quarter because they know this is going to be hotly contested, tightly fought right down to the wire. At least they hope so. Zaya Cook gets her first points of the second half. It's a 3-point lead for South Carolina.
Well, it's not just the points that South Carolina's bench gives you. It is the minutes, it is keeping those starters fresh, and it is that cumulative wear and tear effect. So I love the fact that Coach Yo has been going to the bench.
Baker with a step-back three. Beal, strong take, muscles it up for 2. First points for Bree Beal. Cardoso tripped, Singleton takes advantage. Entry pass knocked away by Singleton. Plenty of time here for South Carolina. Beal again with the take, and a foul is called on Eaton. Well, I love the intensity level. It's dialed up here on a Sunday.
Well, I love the three-point shooting, starting with Zaya Cook, holding that follow through, and then Angel Baker responds with anything you can do, I can do just as well.
They have shattered the SEC home attendance record here in Oxford here today. Previous record set in 1988, Tennessee in town, 5,400, 65-63 here today. They've been averaging 27-86. So you got a team that's got back-to-back 21 seasons. They're in the top half of the standings, top 4 right now in the SEC, and the number 1 team in the country is here, and that crowd has been loud here today, trying to help Ole Miss keep that energy and the intensity level up against number 1 South Carolina.
If you build it, they will come. And that's what Coach Yo has been doing here, especially seeing the results the last 2 seasons. Back-to-back 20-win seasons, and nothing would make these fans happier than to see an upset of the number 1 team here this afternoon.
So we've played a little over 5 minutes here in the third quarter. You've touched on it during the run of play, some of the adjustments you've seen from both sides coming out of the locker rooms.
Well, the last drive by Beal, you had 2 posts who took the two bigger players by Ole Miss one-on-one there, and that's what allowed that opening for Beal to turn the corner and get to the rim and draw the foul.
Foul on Eaton, her first personal. Ibakwe, the only player for either team with more than 2, and here is Bree Beal at the free throw line. Hasn't done a lot offensively today, but recently she has. 14 points, season high against Florida last game, 11 points against LSU in the game prior. She's got 4. I don't know if the shot clock was put into motion properly. If they go to the monitor here, we're probably going to have another media timeout. Let's see if they can talk it through. You heard the horns sounded by the clock operator, scoreboard operator. Officials huddling. So it's just a clock issue. South Carolina on top. Let's see. We're seeing a little bit of scrambling here. That is never a good sign when they have to check cables or check for replacements. Oh, we're moving around a little bit. Okay. South Carolina with 26 wins. They have won 32 in a row. Trying to stay perfect, but coming here to Ole Miss today. They're at Tennessee on Thursday. 2 big late season challenges for Ole Miss before tournament time. So they've made an adjustment without going to the monitor. 4:08 game, 22 shot here for Ole Miss. At the very least, this bought the players on the floor 90 seconds or so to catch their breath, because every possession has been contested so far by the defenses for these two teams.
Well, I got to believe Ole Miss got a set called by Coach O during that break. Can they execute it?
Forced in, ball on the floor. Tie up, possession arrow will give it to South Carolina.
Coach O was arguing that it's their possession based on the possession arrow. That's what she's discussing with the officials right now.
Officials confirming with each other that possession arrow is correct. It belongs to South Carolina. Every single thing is being debated here in this game. Every second on the shot clock, possession, you name it, it's being fought over. Cardoso, tough pass for her to handle off her hands. Turnover South Carolina. They've struggled taking care of the basketball. Baker gives it right back. Johnson, a half step on the field.
Eric, that was such a difficult catch and finish by Raven Johnson. Amazing.
Putting South Carolina on top by 4. Scott over Boston. South Carolina with Cook. And Cook was fouled. She'll go to the line to shoot 2. We talked about it in the first half, Christy. We have watched South Carolina. Let's take a look at the last hoop in this finish, this catch and finish.
Mosiah Cook leads Raven Johnson, but she sees and feels the 2 defenders, so she goes to the left, and because of the way her body was angled, I just can't say enough about how difficult of a finish that was.
South Carolina will stay on it for 40 minutes. We've got to be able to stay there for the full 12 rounds of the fight against South Carolina. We've seen them pull away from teams, wear teams down. Can Ole Miss hang tight with them as this second half progresses will be the question.
I mean, so far I'm going to say yes, they can, because 1, they've been using their bench. 2, Eric, their defense has been really good, and they've done a good job of keeping South Carolina off the offensive glass. Again, it is a 40-minute ball game.
South Carolina excellent at the free throw line so far, 12 of 13 from the stripe for the Gamecocks. Scott trying to get around Bree Beal, which is very, very difficult to do. Taylor defended by the freshman. Taylor goes up with the left hand. Beautiful job by the veteran Maya Taylor.
Well, one thing I'll say, if you're going to beat the top team in the country, you've got to have great point guard play, and that's another reason why I do believe Ole Miss has a chance in this game.
Taylor, 6 points, 3 assists here against South Carolina. Boston can't get the roll. Cardoso got the tip, and here comes Thompson the other way. Thompson back out to Davis. Davis can't get the fade away, and Cardoso's got the rebound.
So Cardoso won't get any credit in the stat sheet for that miss, but her presence is why Davis took that really difficult shot.
How about that job by Taylor to get the strip, and then the feed to Collins. Great defense by Taylor. Got it out to Collins. Back to a 2-point game. Shot clock at 8. Boston, no. Tie up, possession arrow, Ole Miss.
Just the extra effort by Maya Taylor, knowing not to save it on her own basket, so she sends it long. Snuda Collins with the reception. Touchdown. 2 points.
Closing in on 1 minute to go, third quarter. Collins. Taylor directing traffic with 6. Taylor trying to weave through traffic. Flips up another one, that won't drop, and Cardoso outlets to Cook. Johnson wanted to return it to Beal, but turned it over. 12 turnovers now for South Carolina.
And you see an offensive substitutions by Ole Miss here. Coach O probably going to work this clock down, wanting to get these 2 points to try to tie it up going into the fourth quarter.
Baker will slow things down in the final seconds of quarter 3. Shot clock now down to 8. And she'll go to work. Shot clock at 5. Singleton has to try. Won't drop. Free ball tipped into the hands of Raven Johnson, who heaves it at the buzzer. Caught the iron, and that will do it for the third quarter. Number 1, South Carolina in a fight here in Oxford against Ole Miss as we head to the fourth.
Welcome back to Oxford, where we've got a 2-point game. Why? Because Ole Miss is making shots as Coach Joe instructed them to, and the major shot maker's been Angel Baker. 10 points. How has she done it? Great change of pace. She has been measured. She has so many different ways to finish around the rim, and we've seen the full arsenal here on display. And probably no bigger 3 for Ole Miss this season than that step back we just saw.
Just the second 3 for the team here today for Ole Miss. South Carolina also with 2 3-pointers. They attempted just 1 in that third quarter. It is a low-scoring game, which we have come to expect when Ole Miss is on the floor, because only one team has reached their scoring average all season long, and that was Auburn in an overtime game. Ole Miss has kept every opponent. That includes Utah. That includes Oklahoma, 2 teams that know how to really score, keeping them well below their season averages in non-conference. Did it against LSU the other night. They're doing it against South Carolina. The question is, can Ole Miss get over the top against the South Carolina defense?
Well, to do that, there's a couple of I guess the recipe is take care of the ball. Credit Ole Miss. Only 7 turnovers to this point in the game. You've got to execute on offense, and when they have been able to get good shots. They just haven't consistently knocked down those open looks. But I can't say enough about how good Angel Baker's been off the bounce, and Maya Taylor was spectacular in that third quarter.
South Carolina is +9 in rebounding margin, but second chance points, Ole Miss is +3 in that category. That's usually a spot where Ole Miss, you would think they'd be well behind. Aaliyah Boston out of the quarter break for 2 more. She's got 9.
Well, ball reversal, forces rotations, and Baker was stuck on Boston there for the 2. And Eric, this is subtle, but I love Raven Johnson's game. We talk a lot about how quick and how good she is as the point guard, but her defense has been really good today as well.
Bree Beal gets called for the foul. Another South Carolina foul, fouling a jump shooter. We've seen that a handful of times here today.
Well, this Ole Miss team is a jump shooting team. They love to create off the bounce.
Especially Baker. Madison Scott right behind her.
Angel Baker on the line for Ole Miss.
So Angel Baker at the free throw line. Of course, last year, 6th Woman of the Year in the SEC, averaged 11 points a game. She has upped her numbers this year, and she's upped her leadership. She was named a captain the first week of January. Coach O said she was disappointed she wasn't named in the preseason, but she stuck with it. She earned it, and was named the co-captain in January, trying to lead Ole Miss against South Carolina to a monumental upset. Boston tries to turn around again, won't drop. Good job by Scott against Cardoso on the glass.
Good job by Baker boxing out Cardoso.
Baker does a lot of things well. Excellent rebounding guard. Scott took it at Cardoso, couldn't get it. And now Zaya Cook with her head up, surveying, but then losing it out of bounds. Turnover, South Carolina. That's their 13th.
Eric, you mentioned the second chance points. The other stat that jumps off the page to me is only 24-22 advantage in paint points for South Carolina.
Taylor, little hesitation, but couldn't get the left-hand shot to drop after getting around Cardoso. Johnson to Beal. Beal and 1.
Basket will count by Beal. The foul is charged 22. Tanya Singleton.
Raven Johnson just passing ahead to Beal. Didn't have it on the catch, so gathers herself and takes it up. I was worried when she batted the ball to the floor, but the veteran gathers it, scoops and scores.
Beal is the line for the Gamecocks. 1 shot.
So Bree Beal will try to finish off the 3-point play. Baker. We'll bring it back out. Plenty of time on the shot clock, and Baker will hit the reset button. Well off the mark, usually her spot. South Carolina gets a stop on defense, and here they come the other way. Back into the hands of Johnson. Christie talked about how Raven Johnson's game continues to improve after her season ended in just game 2 last year. Here she is, crunch time for South Carolina, playing the big minutes. Boston, huge advantage against Baker right here, and Baker gives the foul.
Foul charge number 15, Angel Baker.
Eric, we've talked a lot about the bench of South Carolina. Will Ole Miss be able to hang through that? We have to remember, this is Ole Miss's 3rd game in 6 days as well. Will we ever see the effects of these 2 really hard games before they even set foot on the court here this evening? I think this crowd is really helping them, but this is the piece right now. No mental mistakes. You got to stay engaged on both ends.
Boston into double figures now with 10. 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Five-point game. fouls on Johnson.
Raven Johnson. That is her
Third personal on Johnson.
Second team.
3 on Johnson, 2 on Beal. No one else with more than 1 for South Carolina. Ibakwe has been playing with 3 for a while. Singleton also with 3. Collins. Davis tries to get downhill and gets the pull-up. Beautiful shot by Marquisha Davis. She's got 9. Cardoso inside out. Raven Johnson for 3.
One of the highest percentage looks from 3 in our game is the inside out. Great job by Johnson to knock it down.
This match is the largest lead of the game for South Carolina, 6 points. Davis. Cardoso is there defensively, and a foul's going to be called on Bree Beal, I believe, for South Carolina. That's the third on Beal.
Team foul to 3 for South Carolina.
Collins will throw it into the backcourt for Scott. 6.5 to go in the fourth. Scott stopped by Boston.
And Raven Johnson denying Baker the ball right now.
Collins with 4 on the shot clock. Collins leans in and beats the buzzer. They will review it, but they'll play on until the next dead ball. Not this time for Johnson, and Cardoso is fouled by Madison Scott.
Foul on this charge, number 24, Madison Scott. Her third personal
Shot clock
foul.
going down.
Yep.
That counts.
That will count.
Great composure by Collins to stay with it, not just throw it up, but put the touch on it, get the 2 for Ole Miss.
I think they indicated they'll check that during the media timeout, which is less than a minute away. Johnson hands off to Cook. Cook leans, no. Boston, one of the easiest rebounds she'll get in a reset for South Carolina.
Eric, one thing you're seeing is every time down the floor, if it's not transition, they are looking to Don Staley to get the play call.
Raven Johnson too strong. Madison Scott tried to keep it alive. It's tipped out of bounds, and it will be Ole Miss basketball. Here's the thing, too. We've talked about it throughout this game. Both teams so committed and playing so hard on the defensive end that it is just going to be so interesting to see who has that endurance to get to the end.
Yeah, I think they found some blood on Angel Baker.
Pendergast is the athletic trainer for Ole Miss. There will not be a moment where, like, let's get Angel out of the game and work on it. Let's just tape up that thumb.
It's a huge
get used
assist.
to it.
Last possession down, they tried to deny Baker a touch by Raven Johnson just face guarding her.
Yeah, you can see right now, I mean, Johnson is draped over Angel Baker. So Marquisha Davis will bring it up against Beal. 5 minutes to go here in Oxford. Singleton. Collins. Collins, tough shot. Collins makes tough shots, apparently. 2-point game. We saw her beat the shot clock, and we just saw a tough leaner there to put her into double figures. And again, the crowd gets loud. timeout in a 2-point game.
Donna Collins is coming up big for the Rebels here in the fourth quarter. On the drive, off the glass. Ole Miss down 2.
No one in critical foul trouble yet, but for a game that's been so tightly fought on the defensive end, you take note of it. Singleton, Ibakwe, and Scott, each with 3 personal fouls for Ole Miss. 2-point game, 4:31 to go. Beal and Raven Johnson. Johnson's played a ton here, each with 3 personal fouls.
Well, I think as much of a struggle as it's been for both teams to score from the field, you definitely don't want to give them freebies. So as we can talk foul trouble, but for me is which team can get in the bonus here quicker and try to get some of those free throws.
It is Ole Miss basketball. South Carolina lead. Ole Miss led 4-2 in the opening minutes of this game. South Carolina's largest lead, 6 on 2 occasions. It has been tight. It has been tightly contested each trip down the floor.
Can't say enough great things about Ole Miss's game here today. Coming off that disappointing loss at LSU, you can see that they learned. Angel Reese just had a monster game on the glass for LSU. And what does Ole Miss do but learn from it and apply it here today against South Carolina, because they have done a great job overall of keeping South Carolina off the offensive glass. Only 10 offensive rebounds for the Gamecocks to this point in the game.
Cook, Boston, Beal, Cardoso, Johnson, the 5 on the floor for South Carolina. Baker has that left thumb taped up. She's on the floor. Collins, Ibakwe, Davis, and Singleton rounds out the 5 for Ole Miss. An SEC record crowd for a game here in Oxford on hand. Over 6,500. Davis on the turnaround. Doesn't get the roll. Ibakwe on the glass is fouled. Remember, Ole Miss is a good rebounding team. They are almost a plus 10 in margin. South Carolina is the best rebounding team in the country at a plus 22 in margin. So Ole Miss can hang in there, and Ibakwe with that second effort will go to the free throw line.
Coach Joe told me today, the reason Rita Ibakwe is playing so well, she loves going against bigger bigs, and this young lady has shown up in a big way here this afternoon for the Rebels.
Ibakwe had made her first 2 free throw attempts today. On the season, 44%. Empty trip. Approaching 4 minutes to go in the fourth. Johnson, the entry to Cardoso. Back outside, Beal, wide open 3. Long rebound for Raven Johnson and a reset here for Carolina. Inside of 4 to play.
Smart play by the freshman. Pull it out, get the offense set.
They are looking for Cardoso. Beal, tough shot for 2. Bree Beal.
I feel like that's what we just keep saying every end. Tough shot, good finish, tough shot.
Has anything come easy
No.
today for either team? Baker defended by Beal. Baker in deep amongst the trees, and a timeout is called by Ole Miss. Coach Joe, knowing that Angel Baker was stuck underneath with Camila Cardoso hovering over her. 3:14 to go in the fourth in a 4-point game. We reset what has been a very tight game. Largest lead of the game, 6. It was by South Carolina on 2 occasions. Right now they are on top by 4. It's Ole Miss basketball with 14 on the shot clock. Ole Miss still with 1 foul to give. What do they draw up coming out of this timeout here against South Carolina, Christy Thomas-Cuddy?
Well, they worked a lot this morning on that 1-4 low, bringing the ball in and then bringing Angel Baker off of some down screens. That they tried to execute a little while ago, but threw the ball in the backcourt. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that again, but Angel Baker needs a touch.
Dawn Staley examining the numbers. She'll see her team is a +10 in rebounding margin, but they're a -7 in turnover margin. Baker to trigger the inbound for Ole Miss.
And you're seeing a switch up here to Bree Bill going to Baker on the out-of-bounds, playing Zaya Cook on Davis.
Baker fouled by Beal. She'll shoot 2. Angel Baker, 81% from the free throw line. 3 for 3 today.
And just like I said a moment ago, that there had been a switch during that last time out by South Carolina, the bench just instructed them to switch back. So I expect to see Cook now on Baker.
Baker now with 13 points. Her season average 15. Went for 21 against LSU. The number 5 team in the country, now taking on the number 1 team in South Carolina. 3-point game, 3 minutes to go. Cardoso for Beal.
Leah Boston's working really hard down low, trying to get the seal. They just missed her.
Cardoso's denied. Here's Baker taking it at Johnson. Johnson can't get it. Boston tapped it out to Cook. Second chance for South Carolina with 2 minutes to go. Dawn Staley wants a timeout. Tough to hear in this building, obviously. Little different these days here in Oxford.
Well, it has been time after time the defense of Ole Miss, and this time that defense allows Baker to get out in transition for probably the easiest 2 that I've seen her make here this afternoon.
11 on the shot clock for South Carolina.
So most teams don't have a sideline out of bounds against the zone, so I expect the ball gets inbounded quickly, and I would look for something diagonal in action by South Carolina here, trying to get a high percentage look. And if I'm Coach O right now, I'm telling my team, make sure we contest but box out, most importantly, and limit them to 1 shot. I think they were trying to isolate Boston there down low. Great job by Ole Miss to stay low.
Cook for 3 off the mark. Battle for the loose ball. Still being fought for. Baker got it before getting tied up. Davis at Cardoso. No. Now there's a tie-up. He'll stay with Ole Miss.
Possession, Ole Miss.
.128 to go. Baker steps back, rattles it home. Ole Miss has their first lead since the first quarter when it was 4-2. Boston blocked by Ibakwe. Ibakwe again, and then a foul will send Aaliyah Boston to the free throw line to try to put South Carolina back in front.
Well, great job by Raven Johnson going over the screen, and Baker knows she's so tight. That's why she does the step back to create that space. Huge bucket for Angel Baker.
Final minutes. Baker defended by Cook. Eight to shoot. Baker tries it again. Not this time. Boston goes down. And a foul is called on Ole Miss, and Aaliyah Boston slow to get up. Davis gets called for the foul.
Eric, how fitting is it that South Carolina knows they can rely on their defense there instead of trying to foul.
If it's been a while for you following SEC women's basketball, yes, Ole Miss has a home court advantage. It's been a while. 6,500 plus. Boston back at the line.
Coach O telling her team, I don't want the timeout. She wants them to bring it up.
Shot clock is off. Game tied at 55 now. She'll take the timeout as Collins gets across half court. And Ole Miss can hold for one with the shot clock off. Tied at 55.
Well, it's a high on the sideline there, so the most important thing is to get the ball inbounded cleanly. South Carolina has no fouls to give, so they've got to play this honestly here and get the stop. But what I'm going to say, and I always say this, Eric, the first shot doesn't normally kill you. It's that second, so everybody's got to box out. And we know who the ball needs to go to for Ole Miss, and that is Angel Baker. She can create her own shot.
It's an interesting look into that South Carolina huddle. Dawn Staley saying, listen, and just pausing and just gathering her thoughts, and by extension, trying to calm down the #1 team in the country, it would appear. And on the other end, fueled by this huge crowd here in Oxford, trying to ride that emotional wave to an upset of #1. Ole Miss has not knocked off a #1 team since they beat Delta State in 1977. It's been a while.
First of all, hats off to you for all the historical facts that you have thrown my way here this afternoon. But Eric, both these head coaches know their teams feed off their personalities and their demeanors. Dawn Staley wants to make sure her team is locked into what she is saying and not be emotional. Meanwhile, for Coach O, she is dialing up a play and imploring her team, first of all, get the ball inbounded. And second of all, she talked a lot about this today. Don't stand and watch. Set screens. Be the screener or be the playmaker here this afternoon.
You saw in the game reset, Ole Miss with one timeout remaining. So if there's difficulty with the inbound, they've got that in their pocket if they need it. Into Davis. Defended by Johnson. "15 seconds. Tie game. #1 South Carolina Will they stay undefeated? Will Ole Miss pull the upset? Davis spinning, falling down, losing the handle. South Carolina ball. 1.1 to go. South Carolina will take a timeout to advance it to the front court, and that's plenty of time for a catch and shoot to win.
You know, it's something South Carolina is asking the officials to do is make sure of the time on the clock. Oh, that last second reach, that's when Davis is out of bounds.
And you got to look, and you can see Aaliyah Boston, Kevin Patel, the official right there on top of it. They will go to the monitor here. Two things could be in play here. One, the time, certainly, and also just to confirm in or out here, last 2 minutes. Right there is when it went out. And so we'll take a look right, not yet.
1.5 would be my guess.
Yeah.
Right around in there.
We're going to rack it back just to see, because we saw right here this bounce. She stopped and then trying to secure it. The bounce there, 1.5. I think you're exactly right, Christy.
And so Cardozo's in the game. Obviously your biggest target if you're trying to lob it in. There is time to come down, catch, and shoot. And so it doesn't even need to be a shot at the rim, because there's time for anyone to catch and shoot. But you need to be coming to the ball so that you don't have to pivot and face and then get the shot off.
Ashlyn Watkins will come into the game for South Carolina.
Now, Eric, something to look out here now. Ole Miss also now no fouls to give, so they have got to play this clean.
Ole Miss wants to make a sub here. I don't think they're going to allow it.
I think Dawn State was trying to get some height on the inbounder here. Now Raven Johnson has a free look to get this pass wherever she needs to deliver it.
They do go over the top. It's batted down. Boston at the buzzer off the rim, and we're going to overtime in Oxford. Call your friends, alert your neighbors. We're going to overtime with the #1 team in the country. South Carolina and Ole Miss tied at 55. South Carolina's last loss was in the SEC Tournament Championship game in Nashville last year to Kentucky. They then went on to win 6 straight, of course, in the NCAA tournament, capped by their victory over Connecticut to win their 2nd national championship. Ole Miss, 16 straight losses to South Carolina.
My last question to Coach O this morning was, I know you believe in your defense, so how many points do you need to win this game today? Shouldn't blink. 65.
Now, the phrase she's used this week, talking about LSU and South Carolina, dictate and disrupt. I'd say you could check those 2 boxes here, because look at the scores. We head to overtime. South Carolina team averaging almost 83 points a game with 55 on the board as we head to OT.
Where just a subtle adjustment there by Ole Miss. They conceded the tip because they weren't going to allow another layup like we saw the game start on by Zia Cook.
Cook hangs in the air for 2. Zia Cook now with 21, 6th time this year. She's gone for 20 or more. 20th time in her career. Snow to Collins. Back to Taylor. Ibakwe comes to set the screen. Taylor throws up another wild shot, and she'll earn a trip to the free throw line. Foul called on South Carolina. Taylor, 67% free throw shooter.
Fouls number 25, Raven Johnson, her 4th personal.
I love that Cook flashed from the weak side, met that pass, and then just pull-up jumper. She makes it look so easy.
Fallon Raven Johnson, her 4th. So Beal with 4, Johnson with 4, and the miss by Taylor. Ole Miss's last win against South Carolina came in the 2010 SEC tournament. So it's been a while. Cardoso has the entry, knocked away Ibakwe. It will stay with South Carolina, 7 to shoot for the Gamecocks.
How good has Rita Ibakwe been around the basket today? That's her 5th block on the afternoon.
Cook's got to go quickly, I think, just realizing it as the bench was shouting to her. So Boston tries to get a little rhythm with the dribble. I think that caught the underside of the rim, so no shot clock violation, but a stop for Ole Miss.
But Eric, that's an example of how loud it is. The entire bench was screaming shot clock, and the players on the floor could not hear.
Baker and Boston now one-on-one. Baker wants to try it, thinks better of it, finds Madison Scott. Cardoso with the rebound. Beal, entry, Cardoso over the top for 2.
And that's the high-low action that puts so much pressure on this 1-3-1 defense because you got 2 lows big, and that was just the height advantage of Cardoso over Collins.
First point since halftime for Cardoso. Taylor trying to work on Johnson. Taylor gets an open look. Taylor was scoreless in the first half. 8 points since then. 2-point game. Beal looks inside this time. Boston.
Exact same play. They're flashing someone to the high post. Both bigs are going low and sealing the bottom of that zone.
Baker works with the Ibakwe screen. Waiting there was Cardoso, and South Carolina gets a stop on defense. Here's Cook. Cook hangs in the air, off the window for 2. Another big-time performance by Zaya Cook, and a timeout is called by Ole Miss. 23 points and counting for the senior from Toledo, who has put South Carolina on top here in overtime by 6.
Well, at some point you knew South Carolina was going to rely on their bigs. High-low pass. First Cardoso, then to Boston. The assist, credit, Bree Beal, the veteran guard, knowing where to get the ball and win for the Gamecocks. Eric, this last time out for Ole Miss, I think was as much for Coach O to get substitutions in the game.
Yes.
They had been sitting at the table. She knew she couldn't afford to go any longer without getting those subs in this game.
Ole Miss with 1 timeout remaining. South Carolina with 3 timeouts. 6-point lead for South Carolina. Ole Miss took a 55-54 lead with 1:20 to go. Aaliyah Boston had a tying free throw for South Carolina to even it at 55. That was their score after regulation. And you can see the edge for South Carolina, 6-2 here in OT.
Eric, the last time down, Ole Miss tried to do a double down screen and let Baker curl. I can't say enough about how Zaya Cook's been defending Angel Baker in the half court the last couple of possessions.
Aaliyah Boston's had to work for it today, certainly. 13 points, 11 rebounds for her 17th double-double this year, the 77th of her career. Cook with 23 points, 4 assists. 4 of those points coming here in overtime for Zia Cook. So Ole Miss, 3-point shot has not been good to them. 2 for 6 for the game. I'm going back and looking. Yeah, they've only attempted 1 3-pointer since the first half ended. They were 1 for 5 in the first half. They've only attempted 1 in the second half, but with 1:30 to go, 2-possession game, you don't have to jack up threes just yet.
What was echoing in my head is what Coach O said to our team today. We have to be us. They're not a 3-point shooting team. Don't waste time with that. Get the ball inbounded and get downhill. And I would like to see the ball in Baker's hand. Let your best playmaker create something for herself or a teammate.
If you're South Carolina, you know they want it in the hands of Angel Baker. What is Dawn Staley drawing up to try to deny Baker a touch, let alone a shot?
I would expect a face guard of her again. I wouldn't even be surprised if the inbound defender came over and was trying to see that. And you can see who the matchups are going to be on the screen right now.
Zia Cook's on Angel Baker. Just that's my analysis on that play right there.
I don't think Dawn was listening to me saying what a great job. I mean, Zia has been tremendous in chasing Baker off these screens on the off ball the last couple of possessions. She gets so low to the ground, so skinny that she's not being touched by the screens.
Dawn Staley getting a final word to Aaliyah Boston and one of the officials, just that she wants a timeout here, depending on what Ole Miss does. So it is Cook defending Baker. Cook's been outstanding offensively, now trying to dig in on defense.
Really slow developing.
And a turnover. South Carolina basketball, and a foul is called. Or timeout is called, correction. Timeout quickly called on the change by South Carolina. I thought maybe Baker got whistled for one, but no, it's a timeout called. South Carolina basketball, South Carolina lead here in overtime.
Well, Dawn Staley's last message to the official was, when we get the ball, I want timeout. Yes. She was talking about off a rebound. He gave it to her anyway. So it's going to be sideline out of bounds in the back court by South Carolina. I wouldn't be surprised if you see some players basically looping around off the run, trying to get the ball inbound and moving up the floor because they don't want to sit still and just allow Ole Miss to foul them.
Zia Cook gets credit for the steal to go along with her 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists.
And I just have to say this, we'll talk points a lot and this and that, but the individual defensive effort by players, we know Ole Miss has been in the zone, but it's been tremendous in the half court. And then you can't say enough about the biggest defensive play of the game so far, Zia Cook on that last possession, getting the turnover on Ole Miss. Ole Miss is going to allow the ball in easily.
South Carolina set it up. They were prepared for Ole Miss to try to deny. Instead, South Carolina's got it. 1:10 to go in overtime. Johnson defended by Baker. Beal looking inside again. Johnson, Cardoso, inside out.
Smart play by Beal not to take that quick shot. Let more time go off the clock.
Shot clock now down to 5. Beal on the drive. Offensive foul called on Bree Beal. She's fouled out.
Offensive foul charged to number 12, Bree Beal. That is her 5th and final personal foul.
That's tough, but she does lower the shoulder there. And now Coach O calling timeout.
It is the first time this year that Bree Beal has fouled out. As a matter of fact, it is the first time in her career that she has fouled out. And this is career game number 128 for Bree Beal.
Think about what a lockdown defender Bree Beal is and what you just said. That just goes even further to how good of a defender she is, that she does what she does without fouling, except for today. Now, for Yo and Ole Miss. You got to go quick here. You cannot allow to have a slow developing offensive play like they did last time. And most importantly, take care of the ball and try to get a shot off.
Here's another little wrinkle as you see the game reset. No timeouts for Ole Miss. So if South Carolina makes it a little difficult on Ole Miss to get it in here, they don't have that timeout to fall back on.
Well, that's why I was so surprised that Ole Miss didn't extend any kind of pressure that last possession and allow South Carolina to take so much time off the clock.
So Cook will get up close to Baker. No trouble for Ole Miss to get it in, and here we go in a 6-point game. Davis, Collins, deep two, no. Baker's the one who comes away with the rebound. Baker can't get the three. Ibakwe on the glass. Davis tiptoeing. Ole Miss getting a couple of opportunities here, but South Carolina has kept them from scoring. Baker heaves another one, no. Another rebound for Ole Miss, but they're the ones who touched it last, although they will go to the monitor here to confirm.
Ole Miss, tremendous job on the glass. They didn't need to settle for a three. They should have just tried to get a quick two. But great effort.
Well, Singleton they are at the monitor here. We'll rack that back again to take another look from this angle. I don't see any contact there. Right there's the contact from Singleton.
Yeah, it's South Carolina ball.
And the question was Cardoso, did she come touch it? And, whoop, hang on. Jury is out. I don't think she did. Yeah, just rack it forward just a little bit. Did Cardoso touch it? No, she pulled back. So good call, Christy. It will be, we think, South Carolina basketball. And they'll check the time as well. And they're going to put 3/10, yes, 21.5 on the clock. South Carolina basketball. South Carolina lead in overtime.
And South Carolina has called timeout as well, and they are saying they want to advance the basketball. Which I agree with this, knowing now Ole Miss is in a position where they have to foul. Don't mess with the ball in the backcourt, get it to the front court, get the ball inbounded and force Ole Miss to foul you.
Boston has struggled from the free throw line today, 5 for 10. Isaiah Cook, 7 for 7. The only other South Carolina player who's attempted a free throw today is Bree Beal, and she's fouled out. She was 2 for 3 from the line. We talked about it a couple times, Christy, that you have to play the full 40 minutes against the South Carolina team. Today it's taken more than that, 45. Ole Miss has hung in there the entire way, but South Carolina has been tough here in OT, outscoring Ole Miss 8-2 in the extra session.
And so you see Ole Miss now going to the man-to-man, trying to force this turnover.
And a foul is called on Ole Miss. Davis gets called for the foul. Just to make sure, Dawn Staley was right there.
Well,
sure.
So was Coach Joe. I was about to say, for this poor official, he was hearing it from both coaches at the same time.
We had a lot of people on the call right there. We talked about the player who's been perfect from the free throw line for South Carolina, Zia Cook. She's the one at the line, 7 for 7. And on the season, 78%. 5th in the SEC. Still a 2-possession game for the moment. That's a big one there. Largest lead of the game for South Carolina, on top by 7.
Nice switch out by Cardoso.
Collins step back 3 as well, short. Cook lets it go out of bounds, and time is running out for Ole Miss. Ole Miss will not foul. They have a lot to be proud of here today. They took the #1 team in the country to overtime in front of a crowd A record crowd of 65-63, but in the end, number one stays undefeated. South Carolina, 64-57 the final.
They did it with the defense, and in the end, Zia Cook just way too much for Ole Miss here this afternoon.
South Carolina held Ole Miss to 2 points in the 5-minute overtime period. National champions dialing it up in that overtime period to win at 64-57. For Christy Thomascutti, I'm Eric Freed. So long from Oxford.